may not be the whole 45 minutes, okay? Don't start crying or anything like that. But please sit back and relax. And I want to take a few minutes to talk about not so much as what the heading said about the student being the most important person on campus. We all know that. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is a student-centered campus, and then a student-centered classroom. And when we start, it kind of rolls off your tongue real easy when you say, I've got a student-centered classroom. It kind of rolls off your tongue real easy, and it sounds good to say it sometimes, but not all the time do we do that when we talk about that. But let's begin at the very beginning. As we walk through this, I'm going to ask you a question. You can write it down. I don't have time to give a lot of feedback from you or anything like that, but I do want you to do this. Kind of think in your mind, or you can write it down, what a student-centered institution would be. Okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is, what is a student-centered classroom? What you would consider that to be. And as we go through this thing, please don't evaluate anything other than yourself as we go through this. Now, I know a lot of you have heard me say this many times before. You know, we spend 90% of our time evaluating the people around us. And we spend about 10% of our time evaluating ourselves. And that should be reversed. We should spend about 99% of our time evaluating ourselves and what we're doing and the direction we're going in and the things that we're doing rather than evaluating the people around you. Let me give you a classic example of that. When you got to work this morning, you saw people, you started evaluating them. Okay? And you've been evaluating the speakers, you've been evaluating the people sitting next to you, and all morning long. So I say that to kind of make my point there. We spend too much time evaluating everyone else when we should be evaluating ourselves. I'm probably harder on myself than anyone could ever be because I expect so much of myself. I expect everything that I do to be the very, very best it could be. And I guess that goes back from the athletic days and people that participate in athletics. You got to kind of get that drilled into you. Give it everything you got and all that stuff, rah-rah. But it's important that you evaluate yourself and ask yourself this question: am I doing everything that I possibly can to make this a student-centered institution? And then am I doing everything that I possibly can to make my classroom a student-centered classroom? Now, I know we do not have people here that are in the classroom. We have people that are in offices and things like that. So let's talk about, first of all, the student-centered institution. Where does it begin? It begins right here, okay? It begins with me, okay? And when I say me, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about me as the president. When I was coaching, you're going to hear me talk a lot about when I was coaching, okay? Because that was 35 years of my life, so I'm going to refer to it a good bit. When I was coaching, our basketball team was a mirror of me, okay? This institution is a mirror of me. So you wonder why that when you see me at work, you're going to see me in a coat and tie, okay? Why? Because what people look in and see is a mirror of myself in this institution. So it's very important that wherever I go, whatever I do, go back to that evaluation, you're being evaluated 24/7, especially in this position. So it's important that this student-centered institution begins with me. Now, the students in high school and our prospective students that we're recruiting, they may not know me from Adam's house cat. Okay? Just to be honest with you. But I guarantee you their parents know who I am. And most of the students probably know who I am simply by watching TV, social media, and things like that. So it's important. So this student-centered institution begins with me. And then it filters down to everyone else on campus. This student-centered institution begins with each one of you and what you do. Okay, let's go through who the first ones. Our student-centered institution begins at the very front end. The recruiters that go out to the high schools. Because those recruiters go out to the high school and they get in front of a senior class and they begin to talk. Those students realize really quick whether or not we're really interested in them or not, or we care about them or not. Back when I was doing those type things and I was in the admissions office and I was out recruiting, I would always go to the students, and the first thing I would tell them, I say, okay, let me take a minute and imagine where you're going to be 5 years from now. Okay? You're going to be through your educational journey probably. You're going to be married. You're going to have children. And that really wakes them up when you start talking about that. And now then, I tell them, our job is to make sure that your journey from this day forward until that point is a successful one. And one that you can look back on and say, man, I'm glad I took that journey. And that's where it all begins. It begins right there with that process. And then obviously we get their application for admission while we're there in the high school. And then that's another process where we make them a student-centered institution, is because we take the time to go through those majors that are listed on there. Now, if we were to tell them, we ask a student, okay, Jennifer, what do you want to major in? What's most of them say? I don't know. Okay, then you need to check liberal arts. Immediately that student's going to get the impression from us, they don't really care about us. They're just putting us in something. Okay, now you tell me that. Okay, let's look at the majors. Let's look and see what we have here. See what you might be interested in. Let's look at all these. Now, if we get down to a point where you don't know after we've talked about all of these, then we'll put you in general studies. We'll do this, but we need to get you on a pathway to graduate. Okay? Now then, think about those two things. That student now has a different opinion of me, has a different opinion of Northeast, because then what do they know? Northeast cares about me. They care about what my journey's going to be like, whether it's going to be a success or it's not going to be a success, okay? So then we come back and we give those applications to the admissions office, and they input those applications. That's only the beginning of it. Then we correspond with them. And then it's very important that our correspondence with them is very positive. We appreciate your application. We're going to get you on a journey to be successful. And our goal is to get you through this journey and get you graduated and be a productive citizen. Once we get that ingrained in those students and they know exactly what they're going to do, and they know that they're going to be a success, okay? Then we come back through. Now then they start coming to campus because it's time to register. It's time to do financial aid, okay? Now this is where it's very important that our customer service skills come into play, okay? They may come to Northeast now at some point in time after they've applied, or maybe before they've applied, and then their encounters that they have while they're here during Northeast now, that's huge. That is huge, because they leave here on the bus. Some of them are talking about, well, I met Mr. Shager. He was fantastic. Or they may say, I met Mr. Shager. He's a turd. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're right, dude.
Hey, I've been called a lot worse than that. So you see my point there. So it's important that our customer service skills begin to really play a very important part in making this a student-centered institution. Okay? Now they come back to the admissions process. If they have to go to the admissions office and check on transcripts and things like that, when they walk up to the window and say, I got a letter that said you hadn't got my transcript. What's going on? Okay, well, we haven't got it. You need to go contact your high school. You need to do this. No, don't say that. Because now they know again, they're not interested in me. They're just trying to get me. Okay? No, you bring that student to the side and say, okay, this is what we need to do. We'll contact the high school for you. We'll try to find your application. We'll get it in place for you. Okay? Now then, that student is walking away or thinking, hey, they really do. They really care about me. So it's important that those customer service skills are in play right there in the admissions office. So we haven't got to the classroom yet. Okay? Now then, we go to that big monster financial aid. Okay? Everybody gets screwed over in financial aid. Y'all know that, don't you? And the students think that. So it's important that when they go to financial aid, and all of our offices do a good job of taking care of our students there. Okay? So they may have been denied financial aid. Okay? Now then, we're a terrible institution because their financial aid was denied. It didn't matter that my parents made $95,000 last year. It doesn't matter. I just didn't get financial aid. And that's when most of them come to see me or come to see Ray Scott's office about a scholarship and those type of things. But my point is this, going through that process, whether they're denied or whether they're not denied, there is a way that we need to relay that to them in a very professional manner, that they are not offended and that they know that, hey, we're concerned about you, we're going to try to find something to help you with. And it comes a time when the rubber meets the road. You don't get financial aid, okay? There's some out there that happens to. So here we are. We've gone through this process of financial aid admissions. Now we got to tackle that next big thing. I got to go see my advisor, okay? I didn't get the classes I wanted, you know, those type of things. But they got to understand that sometimes they don't get everything that they want, okay? And you all know as well as I do, we've got a society coming in that they want it, and they want it now, and they want what they want, and they want it now, okay? And so we've got to deal with that as we go through that and get them to understand, hey, you know, this class is not available, you're going to have to take it at this time, okay? But there's a relationship between the advisor and the advisee that's got to coexist there. That means that, hey, I'm interested in you as a student. I'm interested in you as a human being, okay? There is a relationship, so it's very important that that relationship is a good one there between the advisor. Now then, we haven't got to the classroom yet, okay? Now then, once they get all that done and they get enrolled in class and they're ready to start class, now they're coming into your classroom. They've been screwed over in financial aid. They've been advised poorly. They put me in classes I didn't want. I didn't really want to major in that. And then we expect the teacher and the faculty to take these students and make them champions. Okay? So you have a challenge. Faculty certainly has a challenge at this point. Not to say that there's a lot. You understand I'm exaggerating this a lot, okay? So as we go into this classroom situation, we talk about a student-centered classroom. And what exactly is a student-centered classroom? Now then, I've got a copied definition of a student-centered classroom. Student-centered classroom is education system. Student-centered education systems are those which prioritize the needs and interests of students rather than focusing first and foremost on the interest of higher education institutions and the demands of the institution. Okay, think about that for just a moment. That is sometimes a slippery slope, because we've got to maintain the integrity, we've got to maintain the financial viability of the institution. We've got to do that, or else we won't be here. And at the same time, we've got to make sure that we're a student-centered institution, a student-centered classroom. So it comes down to that, it's the student first and foremost, absolutely. The needs of the student is first and foremost in everything that we do, okay? And we've got to understand that. The educational process is first and foremost for our students. We've got to do that. Now, once we get that in place, there's a lot of work to do with that. I won't go into detail on all those things, but I will go into some of those things. Okay, let's talk about a student-centered classroom just a little bit. Relationships. It's all about relationships. And everything that you do, faculty association that I meet with in here on that group, that's one of the things that we talk about. That's one of the things we talk about. Relationships with our elected officials. It's important that we have those relationships in order to help us financially, in order to get money into the institution. Those things are important, absolutely. But it's also important that that relationship between the instructor and the student is on the highest level, okay? Now then, let's talk about a student-centered classroom and a teacher or instructor-centered classroom. I remember when I was in college, you would go in and sit down and here come the instructor in. About 30 seconds after everybody else was in, here they would come with their walk. That's a teacher-centered classroom. We don't want that. We do not want that. We want a student-centered classroom that when the students are walking in, I'm already there. Okay? And as they walk into the classroom, I greet them and I meet them. Hey, how are you doing? Okay? That's important because when they walk in the door, they didn't walk in the door to see you strut in. They came in to know that somebody cared. They could care less about the subject content. They could care less about anything else. I just want to be somewhere where I'm accepted and I'm wanted and people like me and that type of thing. Now then, transferring that information on the subject to that student now is no longer as big of a challenge as it was. Because now I've got you. You're my friend now, Liz. You're my friend now. So now you're going to listen to me and I can share a lot of information with you. Now then, how well do you know your students? When they walk through the door and you're sitting at your desk or you're here going over your material and they walk in the door, can you tell if something is wrong? Not if you haven't noticed that student before. Okay? So, I go back to my coaching days. I was always the first one to practice. I swept the floor every day. I mopped the floor. Not because it was dirty, but because the players would come in and they would see me working, making their gym floor nice and clean for them to practice in. Okay? Then I watched them as they walked in. When they walked in by themselves, I kind of watched them as they walked all the way down to the dressing room. And you could tell if something was wrong. Okay? Simply by their change. They're not the normal self. Okay? Now, if they came in with 2 or 3 together and they're laughing and joking, they're good. They're good to go. Okay? Now then, what do you do about a student that walks in like that? Well, first of all, you don't address them immediately. Now, while you've got them engaged in work or whatever, then you can walk by the desk and say, "Jenny, how you doing today?" You can tell a lot by their answer or by that look. Okay, and then keep on walking. And then you might say, "If you don't mind, stop by the class. I got something I want to share with you." Okay, then we can talk and we can solve the problem. That's a teacher-student relationship, folks, that's got to be there. And if you have the attitude, "Oh, I ain't got time for that kind of stuff," you don't need to be a teacher. Okay? I don't mean to yell at you. My coach is coming out here. You don't need to be in the teaching business. You don't need to be an instructor. You need to be doing something else. Okay? That's that student-teacher relationship, folks, that's got to be there in order for us to have a student-centered institution and then a student-centered classroom. Okay? It's not about how much knowledge you know. And I've seen some of the most intelligent teachers that couldn't teach their way out of a peanut. Okay? I've seen some very intelligent administrators that couldn't find the door to get out. Okay? So being smart doesn't make you a great teacher or an administrator. Okay? Relationships, common sense. Use common sense. What do you do with your children at home? I guarantee you, if one of them walks in your house this afternoon or tonight and you look at them, you're going to know what's going on. You're going to know something's going on. Why? That relationship. Because you know them. Same with your students. They say, "Well, I'm not their parent." No, you're not their parent, but you're somebody that's probably just as important as their parent because they don't listen to their parents, but they will listen to you. Why? Because they know you care about them. Okay? They know you care about them. That's important. Okay? So in order to create a student-centered classroom, when you first begin, when they walk in the door, be there to greet them. Okay? That creates a student-centered classroom. Now then, what do we do going forward from that point? We've got a large, when you begin each semester, just like we're about to begin this semester, we have a large amount of information that we have so much time in this semester that we've got to get all that information and we've got to get it into the brain of these students that are in our classroom. Okay? How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? Now, I didn't have a keynote PowerPoint for a reason today. Because I wanted to stand up here and I wanted to lecture y'all. Okay? I wanted to lecture you the whole time. I wanted to pound it in your brains. Now, about 3 of you are going to walk out here and remember a little bit of what I said. Okay? Now, I say that because I'm trying to make a point here. I'm sure all of you are absorbing this, and you're like sponges, your brains are like sponges, you're absorbing all this stuff. I say that because your students do not want to hear someone come in and lecture for an hour and 15 minutes. They're not going to do it. Adults are not going to do it. Okay? So what do we have to do? We have to engage those students. And once you engage those students and you get them involved in a group or a pair or a partner, some type of thing like that. And what do we have to use to do that? I know you're sick of hearing technology in the classroom, but that is a tool for you to use to engage your students. It's all about engagement. When we look at the more traditional teacher-centered learning environment, the teacher is the center of the learning experience, and that's not what we want. We want the student to be the center of the learning process. And therefore you do that by engaging them and using technology to do that. In a traditional classroom, the teacher speaks, the students listen. Their brains are like sponges, they absorb everything you say, so to speak, what they usually say, but that's not happening. That's not happening. So we've got to use the tools and things that we have. And one is technology that we use in order to use different kinds of things. Use the technology to provide ways to engage the students with different projects and things like that. Now, one thing that you do once you get the students in and they're engaged in whatever methods you might use, and they become a part of a group, you know what that creates, don't you? It creates a sense of belonging, a sense of community, a sense of a group. Now they belong to something. Now you have their pretty much undivided attention on that project, and then you move on to something else. You have ongoing projects too that go throughout the whole semester. John Messer's not in here, is he? I can talk about him. I don't know if y'all ever noticed this, but he had a lot of projects going on outside with students throughout the semester. And guess what? A lot of times Mr. Messer wasn't even out there with them. So one day I was walking by, I saw him, I walked over and I decided to just watch him. Okay? And man, they were into it. They were into their projects. And one, I forget what they were doing, but one of the students didn't work. And he said, well, we gotta go back to the drawing board. We gotta refigure this. We gotta do this a different way. That's without a teacher being present. Okay, that's the technology and using the things that you have in order to engage the students there. So we look at the things that we use. One was find ways to integrate technology into it. And, you know, technology is not something of the future, folks. Technology is the present. That's what we have available to us. And we've got to use that as a tool in order to create an opportunity for our students to have access to things. The web browsing, for example. I mean, they'll jump on that in a heartbeat before they'll sit there and listen to us talk about a lecture, doing a lecture or something like that. Also, replace homework with engaging projects. You know, there's a controversy here now about whether or not doing homework and student success rates correlate with each other. Okay? And they're saying that it doesn't really work. Some of the studies say it does work. But think about this, for example. I can give you an example. When I was in college and I had to take A&P 1, took A&P 2, and I had a teacher's name was Dr. Knight. And one of the hardest things that I had to do was to learn all 206 bones of the body. Now, did I take those home and memorize them one by one? I couldn't do that, okay? But the method that he used, he took the entire human body apart and just threw the bones out there. And this was in a regular classroom project. And he said, okay, we're gonna put those together, and if we put them together, we're gonna label those things. Okay? Guess what? I made 100 on the test. If I had had to take that home and memorize it, I couldn't remember 25 of them. Okay? But also, if I were able to memorize all of them, I probably to this day would have forgotten them. But now, because of that exercise that we did, I can tell you every one of the bones of the body. So that means that using technology, using different things in the classroom, different examples to teach your students, that's important. That's important. So what I'm saying is this: all of us that are high on ourselves about being the greatest lecturer in the world is out the window, because students do not respond to that type of teaching anymore. Okay? Now, will the lecture method completely ever go away? No, absolutely not. There's a need for it. Okay? There is a need for a lecture in the classroom. That's about 25% of instruction is a lecture. You're always going to need a teacher in there. But the biggest thing from that point on that the teacher needs to do is to instruct, illustrate, and then facilitate. Okay? You will become a facilitator, because now I'm watching a group of 4 or 5 right here work on a project. I will be a facilitator. I will watch. I will answer questions while you all learn. Okay? So that's important. That always sending homework home doesn't necessarily work. Okay? And then ongoing projects. That's huge. To have projects that begin first semester and go all the way to the end of the semester, there's nothing wrong with that. Or be 2-3 weeks long into a project. What you're going to find then is you don't have to do homework, because those students a lot of times will contact each other and say, okay, let's meet in the library and let's work on this project. The teacher's not involved. That is a student-centered classroom, folks. So that's what we want to do. Now, we've got to have buy-in from all of this. Student-centered institution to a student-centered classroom. Now, if we don't, success is a culture, okay? Think back 5 or 6 years ago when we first introduced technology and the iPad, Charlie. I was like, gosh, that was like trying to sell a pack of razor blades. Nobody gonna buy it, okay? So that was definitely a challenge. Now the culture of the institution is what? Technology, iPad usage in the classroom, using those tools for instruction. Now it's part of the culture. Now let's look at the student-centered institution and the student-centered classroom and put that together for success, okay? Do we have a culture that just booms out success? Student success here on campus. We're not where I would like to be, okay? But we're getting there. The Success Center, great tool we've got in place, because now we're taking those students and we are creating a relationship with them. And students that normally were not successful now are successful, okay? Students that were successful in the classroom and were our PTK students and things like that, they are part of that Success Center because they are tutors in the classroom, tutors in the tutorial center, okay? So we are trying to create a culture of success. And let's go back to the beginning now. How do you create that culture for success? Quit evaluating me and everyone else around campus. Evaluate yourself. Make that a success. and then it will radiate out to everyone else. It's important that we do that. It's important you do that. You're challenged with that. And only you controls whether or not you're successful. I don't control it. I hope that I do things that would inspire you to be successful. I hope that I do that. But it's just like these students coming in the classroom. I use an old term my grandpa used to do. You can take that mule down to the creek, but he ain't gonna drink. Okay? Students are the same way. You can bring them into the classroom, you can create a student centered classroom, you can do everything in the world for them, but some folks just not gonna do it. Agree with that? Now that, my friends, is the challenge. How are we gonna get those to be successful? That's what we're challenged with. I'll say this, and I'll say it, and I've said it many, many times. At Northeast Mississippi Community College, we have some of the most brilliant, talented individuals in the world. We have those here. Okay? And it's very important that we relay that on to our students. Okay? So that's what I challenge you with. And I have a lot more to talk about, but like I said, my schedule is really tight. Does anyone have a question about anything? I know this is kind of quick, didn't get too in depth to it, but anyone have a question about anything, a comment about anything? Okay, and I didn't really want to stay this long in here because there's too many people in here. And no one has a mask on. Oh yeah, she got a mask on. A couple of them got masks on. The nursing people got masks on. Okay.